Before weakness breaks your body, it whispers to your mind, not in chaos, but in comfort. It tells you to stay in bed a little longer, to stay silent when your voice should rise, to avoid discomfort, confrontation, effort, in the name of peace. But that peace is a lie. It's the slow poison of decline. You don't lose strength overnight. You trade it away, one small surrender at a time. And when you finally wake up, surrounded by the life you once feared, you realize something terrifying. You didn't fall. You decayed. We live in an age that celebrates softness and labels it kindness. That confuses avoidance with emotional intelligence. That praises comfort as success, while quietly breeding fragility. The Stoics saw it centuries ago. They knew that the true enemy of strength isn't pain or loss. It's comfort, because comfort dulls the mind, weakens the will, and kills the fire inside before the world ever gets a chance to dot in this video. You'll discover 7 brutal Stoic laws, principles that will kill your weakness and rebuild the real you. Not through positivity, not through wishful thinking, but through the discipline and raw honesty the ancient philosophers used to master chaos itself. And at the end, you learn the ancient Stoic test that reveals whether you're truly free or still enslaved by your emotions, your comforts, and your fears. Because real freedom doesn't come from what you escape. It comes from what you can endure. And today, we begin there. Stoicism wasn't born in classrooms or temples. It was born in shipwrecks, in exile, in the chaos of empires. Its founder, Zeno of Citium, lost everything when his ship sank. Instead of collapsing, he walked into a bookstore and from that room created a philosophy that has outlived entire civilizations. Centuries later, Marcus Aurelius ruled the world, yet wrote in his journal like a humble student of life. He had armies, wealth, and every luxury, but still declared, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the heart of Stoicism. Not an escape from life, but command over it. A mindset that faces storms, not runs from them. In a world obsessed with ease and entertainment, Stoicism reminds you, comfort is the cage, discipline is the key. The Stoics didn't study philosophy for pleasure. They lived it as armor against the unpredictable, as training for reality itself. And today, that same ancient armor is more necessary than ever, because our wars are no longer fought with swords, but with screens. Our enemies aren't emperors, they're anxiety, distraction, and self-doubt. We have everything, yet feel emptier than ever. This is why the 7 Stoic laws still matter. They cut through modern illusions and rebuild the strength you've forgotten. Here's what you'll learn. How voluntary discomfort hardens your mind and kills fragility. How perception control lets you stop reacting and start ruling your inner world. How negative visualization transforms fear into gratitude. How internal Locus turns blame into power. How Memento Mori brings urgency to every breath. How self-sufficiency frees you from the prison of validation. How purposeful action restores meaning in a distracted age. These aren't motivational slogans. They're weapons sharpened by centuries of practice, forged by those who endured plagues, betrayals, and wars, and still walked calmly through the fire. Before we move into the laws, set a simple contract with yourself. This won't be passive listening. It's training. For the next hour, treat every idea as a drill. When a line hits you, pause, breathe, and ask, where does this live in my life right now? Name the habit, name the person, name the situation. Philosophy only becomes power when it wears a name. Here's the promise. If you apply even one of these laws for 7 straight days, you'll feel the ground beneath you change. Your mornings will get quieter. Your decisions will get cleaner. The noise will still exist, but it will stop owning you. That's the point. Not a perfect life, but a commanded one, and expect resistance. The mind protects its patterns. When you hear something that threatens your comfort, it will rationalize, delay, and negotiate. Smile at that. Resistance is the weight. The rep doesn't count until it gets heavy. To keep you engaged, I'll give you a micro challenge at the end of each law. One action you can do today. No gear, no apps, no excuses. Think of them as 7 bricks. Lay 1 brick well each day, and by next week, you'll be standing inside a different mind. Now, onto the forge. The first blow of the hammer lands here. Choose your heart before life chooses it for you. Embrace the struggle before it embraces you. Every generation has its poison. Ours is comfort. We spend our lives chasing it. Softer beds, quicker meals, easier work, fewer challenges. And when we finally have it, we call it success. But what if success is exactly what made you weak? The Stoics understood something most people never will. Ease is addictive. Once it owns you, it steals the very thing that makes life meaningful, effort. Because without resistance, there is no strength. Without challenge, there is no growth. Seneca lived in luxury. Yet, once a month, he would strip himself of it. He'd wear coarse clothes, eat cheap bread, and sleep on the hard floor. Why would a man who had everything practice poverty? Because he feared comfort more than he feared pain. He called it rehearsal from misfortune. He knew that hardship isn't an enemy, it's a teacher. Every act of voluntary discomfort trains the mind to stay calm when the world turns violent. It rewires your relationship with pain. Instead of seeing pain as punishment, you start to see it as a forge. The Stoics didn't wait for adversity. They went to meet it, because the person who can suffer voluntarily is already stronger than the one who waits for life to decide when it's time to hurt. Comfort is a silent deal you make with weakness. You trade short moments of ease for a long-term fragility. And one day, you discover you can't handle anything hard anymore. Not rejection, not failure, not silence. That's why the Stoics trained against it. They knew life would hurt, so they practiced hurting first, on their own terms. Because when pain becomes familiar, it stops being frightening. Try this. Wake up earlier than you want to. Take the cold shower. Skip the unnecessary meal. Speak up in the conversation you've been avoiding. Do the thing that tightens your stomach. Then notice what happens. The first few seconds sting. Your mind screams for escape. But if you stay, something powerful occurs. The voice of resistance fades. In its place rises something quieter, the realization that you survived it. You are not as fragile as your comfort suggests. You can think, move, breathe, and act even when you don't feel like it. That's freedom. Discomfort doesn't destroy you, it reveals you. Each act of voluntary struggle rewires your brain, shifting you from victim to creator. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about proving you can lead yourself. Because a man who can choose difficulty at will cannot be broken by accident. There's a strange paradox hidden inside struggle. The more you choose it, the less it hurts you. Pain voluntarily embraced becomes strength. Pain avoided becomes fear. Most people pray for an easy life, yet easy lives make brittle souls. When nothing tests you, nothing strengthens you. You don't grow through what you escape. You grow through what you endure. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of hardship. They imagined loss, poverty, rejection, even death, not to suffer early, but to prepare early. So when misfortune arrived, they could say, I've met you before. That's the power of rehearsal. Life can surprise the mind that's already practiced. Voluntary discomfort is not cruelty. It's compassion for your future self. You suffer a little now, so you don't crumble later. You train small battles, so you can survive great wars. And slowly, the world stops feeling so hostile, because you've already made peace with difficulty. Here's your micro-challenge for the week. Choose one act of controlled discomfort and repeat it daily for 7 days. Take the cold shower. Wake an hour earlier. Do the workout you've been avoiding. Have the honest conversation each morning. Whisper to yourself, "I choose my heart." By the 7th day, you'll notice something subtle. The world won't feel easier, but you will. Weakness dies in discomfort, and strength, quiet, unshakable strength, is born there too. Your mind is the battlefield, not the world. The world doesn't hurt you. Your interpretation of it does. Two people can live the same day. One sees chaos, the other sees opportunity. Nothing changed except the meaning they gave it. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That single sentence is a revolution, because it means no one and nothing can control how you feel unless you hand them the key. The Stoics believed perception is the first and greatest discipline. Every emotion, anger, fear, envy, anxiety, begins not from what happens, but from what we think it means. An insult is just sound. Failure is just an event, but the story we attach to them. I'm not good enough. I've lost everything. They don't respect me. That's what chains us. Modern life multiplies this distortion. Social media turns opinions into judgments. News amplifies fear. Your mind becomes a theater of exaggerated threats. The Stoic response: don't silence emotion. Separate it. Ask, is this what happened? Or is this what I'm telling myself about what happened? That question alone can stop an emotional spiral midair. Your mind is not a mirror of the world. It's a painter. It doesn't reflect reality, it colors it. And most people are walking around trapped inside their own artwork, convinced their pain is truth, when it's only interpretation. That's why Epictetus said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things." Think about that. It means the insult itself is harmless until your mind gives it permission to wound you. It means failure is neutral until you label it defeat. It means suffering isn't caused by life. It's caused by resistance to life. When something bad happens, your brain doesn't pause to understand. It reacts. It writes stories. This always happens to me. They never respect me. I'll never recover from this. Those stories are lies, elegant, convincing lies. They turn temporary events into permanent prisons. Perception control is about breaking that habit of automatic storytelling. It's about inserting space between the event and your reaction. The small but sacred gap where freedom lives. The next time anger rises, catch it. Don't feed it. Don't fight it. Just watch it. See it as a storm passing through your sky, not your identity. Because when you can observe a feeling instead of becoming it, you've already won the first battle. And that's where real control begins, not in the world outside, but in the storm within. The Stoics didn't deny emotion. They mastered it through awareness. They knew the human mind is like a wild horse, powerful when directed, destructive when untrained. So they practiced daily to guide it. One of their simplest tools was the pause. When something triggers you, a rude message, a delay, a disappointment, pause. Even a single breath creates distance between stimulus and reaction. That's the moment where you reclaim your power. Epictetus taught that between every event and your response lies a space, and in that space is your freedom. The untrained person collapses that space. They react instantly, blindly, emotionally. The Stoic expands it. They slow time, examine the situation, and decide what meaning to give it. Here's how you can start. Name the emotion. When anger rises, say quietly, Anger is here. By naming it, you separate yourself from it. You stop being angry and become aware of anger. Reframe the event. Ask, what else could this mean? Maybe the person who insulted you is in pain. Maybe the failure is redirection, not rejection. You're not lying to yourself. You're expanding perspective. Return to the present. Most suffering lives in imagined futures or replayed pasts. Right now, in this exact breath, you're safe. You're alive. You're capable. Perception control isn't about painting everything positive. It's about seeing clearly, without distortion, without panic. Because clarity, not comfort, is peace. There's a Stoic practice called the view from above. When the mind feels trapped, rise above it, literally, in imagination. See yourself from a great height, your city, your country, the spinning globe beneath you. Watch how small every problem becomes in that view. Not meaningless, but right-sized. Marcus Aurelius used this exercise nightly. He'd imagine the Earth turning slowly in space and remind himself how small a part of time we share, how small a fragment of the universe we inhabit. Perspective doesn't erase pain, it purifies it. It separates what's real from what's exaggerated. You stop drowning in single moments because you remember the ocean of existence they belong to. This is the paradox of perception. When you stop trying to control the world stops controlling you. Reality is undefeated. It will always win arguments. But once you surrender your need for control, you gain the only kind that matters, mastery of your response. You can't decide what happens tomorrow, but you can decide what story you'll tell about it. You can't stop the insult, but you can stop the echo of it inside your head. You can't prevent pain, but you can prevent it from becoming suffering. Here's your micro challenge. Once a day, when frustration rises, pause, zoom out, and say to yourself, this is just one scene in a much larger story. Then breathe and act deliberately. That small pause is where weakness dies and freedom begins. Because in the end, perception is everything. You can live in chaos and still be calm. You can live in loss and still be whole. The battlefield was never outside you. It was always in your mind. Prepare for loss. To love life fully. Most people live as if everything they love will last forever. They take the faces round them for granted, as if they'll always be there. They assume tomorrow will look just like today, until the day it doesn't. Then, when loss finally comes, they call it tragedy. But to the Stoics, tragedy wasn't when something ended. It was when you refused to see that it could. The Stoics practiced what they called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They visualized misfortune not to suffer early, but to suffer wisely. They rehearsed the storm, so when it came, they could stand still in the wind. Seneca wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has seen their coming beforehand." He would imagine exile, sickness, betrayal, death, and in doing so, he stripped them of surprise. By confronting loss before it arrived, he gained peace before it was required. To modern ears, this sounds grim. But negative visualization isn't pessimism. It's gratitude sharpened by reality. When you imagine losing something, you see its value with terrifying clarity. You stop sleepwalking through life and start living as if everything is temporary. Because it is. Think about it. How many ordinary mornings have you rushed through without noticing the warmth of you? A coffee, the quiet hum of your home, the voice of someone you love. Now imagine tomorrow they're gone. That sting in your chest, that's presence, pure and filtered presence. And that is the beginning of real gratitude. Negative visualization doesn't darken your days. It brightens them. It turns ordinary moments into miracles, because you finally notice they're fleeting. Negative visualization is the art of loving something more by imagining its absence. It trains your mind to see through the illusion of permanence, the lie that today will always be available. Here's how you practice it in the modern world. When you wake up, pause before reaching for your phone. Look round your room, the roof over your head, the air in your lungs, the person sleeping beside you. None of these are guaranteed. Close your eyes for 10 seconds and picture losing one of them. Then open your eyes and look again. Notice how gratitude appears instantly, without effort. That is the quiet power of this exercise. It moves gratitude from theory to instinct. You stop needing dramatic success to feel blessed. You begin to feel rich just because the people you love are still alive. At work, visualize failure. Not to frighten yourself, but to awaken urgency. Imagine being fired tomorrow. Would you waste today gossiping? Or would you build something meaningful? Would you delay that idea? Or would you finally take the risk? In relationships, imagine that tonight's conversation could be the last one. Would you still hold back the compliment? Would you still choose to be right instead of being kind? The Stoics used loss as a mirror, not a wound. When you learn to face it often, love becomes sharper, not softer. You no longer cling out of fear. You cherish out of awareness. Negative visualization is not about sadness. It's about clarity. The kind that turns fear of death into an appreciation for life itself. There's a paradox hidden inside loss. When you accept that everything ends, you finally begin to live. The fear of loss doesn't protect you. It prevents you from loving fully. But once you face the truth that everything you cherish will eventually slip away, love becomes fierce, honest, and immediate. Marcus Aurelius meditated on his own death every morning, not to despair, but to focus. He asked himself, if today were my last, what would I do differently? And then he lived that answer before the sun went down. Most people avoid death because they think it's dark. But what's truly dark is wasting life pretending it will never end. The Stoics understood that contemplating mortality doesn't drain joy, it multiplies it. Because when you realize you could lose everything, every breath becomes sacred. This is the essence of amor fati, the love of fate. To love not only what is beautiful, but also what is inevitable. To stop resisting life's flow and start trusting it. You don't need everything to last forever to be grateful. You just need to be awake long enough to see its value before it's gone. Here's your micro challenge for this week. Once a day, sit in silence for 5 minutes. Visualize losing one thing you take for granted. Your job, your health, your home, or someone you love. Feel the weight of that loss as if it has already happened. Then open your eyes and look round. You will notice nothing has changed, except you. That brief exercise rewires your heart. You'll complain less, you'll rush less, you'll love harder. And when real loss eventually comes, it won't destroy you. You'll grieve, but you'll stand. Because the purpose of negative visualization isn't to live in fear of endings. It's to live so deeply, so consciously, that when the end arrives, you can whisper, I was here, and I truly lived. You are the cause, not the effect. There comes a point in every life when you must decide, will I be the leaf, carried wherever the wind takes me? Or will I be the wind itself, shaping the path forward? Most people spend their lives blaming the weather. They blame their parents, their boss, the economy, fate, God, the algorithm, everything but themselves. The Stoics called this the disease of external control, the belief that your happiness depends on things outside your will. Epictetus, who was born a slave, saw the truth clearer than most free men. He said, there is only one way to happiness, to cease worrying about things beyond the power of our will. He divided life into 2 realms, what's within your control and what isn't. Peace belongs only to those who know the difference. But most of us waste our energy on the wrong side. We fight to control outcomes, people, opinions, timing. We wrestle ghosts and wonder why we feel powerless. The Stoic path begins where blame ends. It says, stop waiting for the world to shift. Start shifting yourself, because the world will always be unpredictable. But your choices never have to be. The one who takes ownership of his reaction stops being a victim and becomes a creator. Look closely at the areas where you feel most stuck. Your career, your relationships, your sense of self. Chances are every one of them is tied to something you can't control. You want your boss to appreciate you. You want your partner to change. You want the world to reward your effort on your schedule. And when it doesn't, frustration takes over. That's the illusion the Stoics warned against. The endless suffering that comes from trying to bend reality to your will. Because the world doesn't owe you fairness. It owes you nothing. And yet, you owe it your best response. The Stoic warrior doesn't waste time asking, why won't they change? He asks, what can I do right now? You can't force someone to respect you, but you can live in a way that commands respect. You can't stop the storm, but you can hold the wheel steady until it passes. You can't dictate opportunity, but you can prepare so completely that when it appears, you're ready. That's internal locus in action, acquired. Rebellion against victimhood. Every time you shift your focus from them to me, you reclaim power that was never truly lost, only misplaced. And the more you practice it, the more you realize that control isn't about domination. It's about direction. It's not about owning the world. It's about owning yourself. Because once you control yourself, the world no longer decides who you are. The greatest paradox of control is this: the more you try to control others, the less control you have. But the more you master yourself, the more the world begins to respond. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire plagued by war, betrayal, and disease. He couldn't control any of it, but he could control Marcus, his thoughts, his actions, his character, and because he ruled himself, he ruled everything that mattered. That's the secret no one tells you. You don't need to control outcomes to change your life. You only need to control your direction. The person who complains, I can't, has already surrendered. The person who asks, what's still within my reach, has already begun to win. You didn't choose where you were born, but you can choose what you build from it. You can't rewrite your past, but you can decide whether it chains you or teaches you. You can't stop every storm, but you can build the kind of soul that doesn't drown. That's the real meaning of freedom. Not escaping responsibility, but claiming it. Because when you own your life, excuses die. Here's your micro challenge for this week. For the next 7 days, listen for the phrase, I can't, each time you say it. Stop and reframe it to, I haven't figured out how yet. That single shift changes everything. Because weakness hides in excuses, but strength grows in ownership. And the moment you stop waiting for the world to change, you'll notice something extraordinary. The world starts changing with you. Remember, you will die, so that you may truly live. Every breath you take is borrowed time. Every sunrise you see is a gift that millions before you never received. And every moment you waste is a piece of your finite life you'll never get back. Most people hear that and feel fear. The Stoics heard it and felt clarity. Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. It wasn't a warning. It was an awakening. They didn't whisper this phrase in despair. They carried it with reverence. It reminded them that time isn't something you spend. It's something you spend up. And when it's gone, it's gone. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. He didn't write it to be poetic. He wrote it because he knew the truth. Death is not the opposite of life. It's the definition of it. Knowing that your time is limited doesn't make you dark. It makes you deliberate. You stop postponing purpose. You stop arguing over trivialities. You start asking, if this were my final day, would I spend it this way? That single question can burn away everything meaningless in your life. The gossip, the grudges, the endless distractions, until all that's left is what matters. We live as if time were infinite, as if the clock will pause while we hesitate. We save dreams for later, love for later, forgiveness for later, until there is no later left. Memento Mori destroys the delusion. It cuts straight through the fog of someday and leaves you standing in the sharp light of now. When you remember that you will die, priorities reorder themselves instantly. You stop obsessing over the opinions of people who won't attend your funeral. You stop chasing applause and start chasing meaning. You start treating time as the sacred currency it is. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." He saw how people guarded their money with vigilance, yet spent their days like they were endless. But life, unlike wealth, never replenishes. Every day you trade for something. Ask yourself honestly, what are you trading it for? Memento Mori doesn't make you reckless. It makes you precise. It's not about rushing. It's about removing what doesn't matter. It's not about fearing death. It's about refusing to die. Awake. When you face mortality each morning, you no longer need motivation. You act because you know the clock is running, and the silence after it stops will be final. That awareness isn't morbid. It's the most honest form of love for life, because only by remembering the end can you truly honor the middle. The Stoics didn't meditate on death to escape life. They did it to enter it fully, to see that every breath is a vanishing miracle, every conversation a once-in-a-lifetime event. When you carry death on your shoulder, you stop drifting, you start choosing. Seneca practiced this truth until his final hour. When Emperor Nero ordered his death, he didn't beg or rage. He smiled. He had rehearsed this moment his entire life. He opened his veins calmly and spoke to his friends as if they were dining together. He had already made peace with what could never be changed. That's the heart of amor fati, love of fate. To not merely accept what happens, but to embrace it as part of a grander design you may never understand. To say, yes, even this, even pain, even loss, even death. Because when you love your fate, you stop bargaining with life. You stop demanding guarantees. You start living with both feet on the ground, no longer begging for more time, but making full use of the time you have. Here's your micro challenge for this week. Each morning, before you touch your phone, sit for 2 minutes in silence. Whisper to yourself, I could leave life today. Then ask, what deserves my attention most before I go? And let that answer shape your day. You'll find that fear fades, clarity sharpens, and love deepens. Because Memento Mori isn't about dying well. It's about living so completely that when the end comes, you can meet it not with panic, but with peace. So remember, you will die. And that's precisely why you must live. Your peace cannot depend on applause. There's a hunger that lives inside most people, not for food, but for approval. They wake up reaching for validation the way the thirsty reach for water. A compliment, a like, a nod from someone they admire. And yet, that thirst is unending, because the cup has no bottom. The more you drink from it, the emptier you become. The Stoics saw this as one of the most dangerous addictions of all, the addiction to other people's opinions. Epictetus warned, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. What lies further beyond your control than what others think of you? You can act with excellence and still be criticized. You can be kind and still be misunderstood. You can pour yourself into something meaningful and be ignored. If your peace depends on applause, You've handed your soul to strangers. You've become a puppet pulled by invisible strings. Self-sufficiency doesn't mean isolation. It means building an inner foundation so stable that praise and blame hit the same wall and fall silent. It means being able to say, I know who I am, even if you don't. Look around you. The modern world is built on performance. Every post, every meeting, every interaction quietly asks, am I being seen? We curate moments for strangers while ignoring the life that's actually ours. The Stoic answer is brutal in its simplicity. Stop performing. Start being. Marcus Aurelius never asked, do they approve of me? He asked, was I just? Was I kind? Did I do my duty? That shift is liberation. Because when validation comes from virtue instead of vanity, no one can take it away. You can begin practicing this right now. When you post online, ask yourself, would I still share this if nobody liked it? When you speak at work, ask, am I saying this to help or to impress? When you love someone, ask, do I care for them or for how they make me look? Every honest answer strengthens your foundation. Self-sufficiency also means finding peace without perfect conditions. Most people say, I'll be happy when the promotion arrives, when love returns, when life finally slows down. But the Stoic says, I choose peace now. Seneca wrote some of his most profound letters while exiled and stripped of wealth. He didn't wait for a comfort to feel content. He built contentment from within. And so can you. Because peace built on circumstance is fragile, but peace built on character is unbreakable. Here's the paradox of true freedom. The moment you stop needing approval, you begin to attract it. People are drawn to those who no longer chase validation, to those who stand firm in quiet confidence. But this freedom isn't arrogance. It's clarity. You stop measuring your worth by noise and start anchoring it in virtue. Self-sufficiency doesn't mean isolation. It's the foundation for connection, because only two whole people can truly meet. Two broken halves seeking completion will only wound each other deeper. When you become self-sufficient, love becomes cleaner. You no longer cling out of fear or give to be seen. You love freely, because your worth no longer depends on being loved back. And that's the kind of love the Stoics call divine. Expectationless, steady, unconditional. The same applies to ambition. You still strive, but you no longer chase recognition. You build in silence and let your results speak or not. Either way, you're at peace. That's the ultimate test of self-sufficiency. Can you remain calm when no one notices your effort? Can you stay grounded when praise and criticism sound the same? If you can, you're untouchable. Here's your micro-challenge for this week. Spend one full day seeking zero external validation. Don't check likes. Don't fish for compliments. Don't explain yourself. Just act from your principles, even when no one sees at first. It will feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is the sound of dependence breaking. And when the day ends, you'll feel something powerful rising in its place. Not pride, not ego, but quiet sovereignty. Because peace that depends on others isn't peace. It's permission. And the Stoic never waits for permission to be free. Move with meaning, or be still with peace. People today are constantly moving, but rarely progressing. We've mistaken activity for achievement, busyness for a purpose. We fill our calendars, drown in notifications, chase endless tasks, and call it productivity. But if all motion lacks direction, it's just distraction wearing ambition's mask. The Stoics saw through this illusion centuries ago. They believed that every action should pass through two questions. Is it right? And is it necessary? If the answer was no, they didn't do it. No hesitation, no justification. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and still found time for stillness. Not because he had more hours than you, but because he was intentional with them. He wrote, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Purposeful action isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, better. It's aligning every choice with your values so that nothing you do feels wasted. You don't scatter your energy chasing approval or routine. You channel it toward what actually builds your life. Ask yourself today, am I moving forward, or am I just moving? Because every moment spent on the meaningless is stolen from the meaningful. The Stoics taught that purpose is not found, it's chosen. Meaning doesn't appear out of luck or passion. It appears when you act with intention. Every choice either strengthens or weakens your character. There is no neutral. Seneca warned, people are frugal in guarding their property, but waste their time, the one thing it is right to be stingy with. Most people drift through their days as if time were endless. They guard money but squander hours. They overthink big goals but underthink the small choices that shape them. Purposeful action begins with awareness. When you eat, eat fully. When you work, work completely. When you rest, rest without guilt. Presence is the highest form of discipline. But don't confuse purpose with constant motion. Sometimes, doing nothing is the most meaningful thing you can do, if you do it deliberately. Rest is not laziness, it's recovery. Stillness is not stagnation, it's alignment. The Stoic moves like an archer, calm, precise, patient. He doesn't release the arrow until the target is clear. Every shot is intentional, because every arrow is finite. Just like time, the modern world worships speed. Stoicism worships direction. Better to take one step in clarity than 1,000 in confusion. So before you act, pause and ask, does this serve who I want to become? If the answer is no, you already know what the Stoic would do. Nothing. The Stoics believed that every action is a vote, a silent ballot cast for the person you're becoming. Each moment is either building you or breaking you. The tragedy isn't that people fail. It's that they succeed at things that don't matter. Most exhaustion isn't physical. It's spiritual. It comes from living out of alignment, from saying yes when your soul says no. The cure isn't more hustle. It's more honesty. Look at your days. How much of what you do is movement without meaning, scrolling, reacting, performing? And how much is genuine creation, connection, contribution? You can't do everything, but you can do what matters, and that's enough. The Stoic way is ruthless in simplicity. They practiced elimination as excellence. They said no often, not out of rejection, but out of protection. Every no to distraction is a yes to depth. When you live this way, life slows down, not because there's less to do, but because everything you do has weight. Work becomes sacred. Rest becomes recovery. Time becomes treasure. Here's your micro challenge for this week. Before you begin any task, big or small, pause and ask 3 questions. Is it right? Is it necessary? Does it align with who I want to be? If the answer is no, walk away. If the answer is yes, give it everything. Because the Stoic doesn't chase motion. He embodies intention. He acts not out of urgency, but out of clarity. He rests not out of fatigue, but out of wisdom. That's the law of purposeful action. Move with meaning, or be still with peace. Anything else is noise, and life is too short for noise. So here we are, 7 laws, 7 blades, sharpened by centuries of fire. They weren't meant to comfort you. They were meant to cut away everything false. The weakness, the excuses, the noise. If you've listened this far, it means something inside you was ready. Ready to stop being ruled by fear, by comfort, by the endless search for approval. Ready to meet the person you were supposed to become before the world convinced you to shrink. Let's remember what you've just learned. The law of voluntary. Discomfort taught you to choose your struggle before life chooses it for you. Because weakness dies in discomfort. And strength is born there too. The law of perception control reminded you that the battlefield is not the world, but your mind, and that between what happens and how you respond lies your freedom. The law of negative visualization showed you how to love what you have by imagining its loss. To turn fear into gratitude, and gratitude into presence. The law of internal locus gave you back your power. To stop pointing outward and start acting inward, because you are the cause, not the effect. The law of Memento Mori burned away illusions, teaching you that remembering death isn't morbid, it's sacred. You live deeper when you realize you're running out of time. The law of self-sufficiency freed you from applause, because peace that depends on others isn't peace, it's permission. And finally, the law of purposeful action anchored it all together, reminding you that motion means nothing without meaning, and that every choice is a vote for who you are becoming. 7 laws, 7 steps towards sovereignty. But remember this, knowledge without practice is entertainment. Understanding without action is comfort. The Stoics didn't read, they lived. They didn't memorize quotes, they embodied truth. They faced the chaos of empires, betrayal, poverty, and death, and still chose calm, duty, and virtue. You are being asked to do the same. Not to admire these laws, but to use them. Start small. Pick one law and live by it for 7 days. Then at another. Let these principles climb into your routine, your language, your habits, until they stop being philosophy and start being instinct. And slowly, you'll notice the shift. The noise will quiet. The fear will fade. The chaos will lose its grip. And in its place will rise something ancient, the real you. The Stoics believed the best revenge against weakness was to become strong. The best answer to hardship was to become capable. The best response to suffering was to become unshakable. You don't need to become someone else. You need to remember who you were before fear took over, before the comfort, before the compromise, before the smallness. That version of you, the one buried under years of hesitation, is still there, waiting for you to stop talking about change and start walking it. So here's the challenge. Tomorrow morning, when your alarm goes off and comfort whispers, stay in bed, rise. When fear says, not today, act anyway. When doubt says, you can't, answer with silence and discipline. Because this is where the real you begins. Not when the world changes, but when you do. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are not a prisoner of the past. You are not defined by weakness. You are the builder, the sculptor, the soul behind the stone. Now stand up and rebuild. If this message spoke to you, don't just move on. Move deeper. Reflect, act, and share this philosophy with someone who needs to hear it. And if you found strength here, subscribe to StoicCraft, where ancient wisdom meets modern struggle. Every week, we sharpen the mind, steady the heart, and train the soul, until nothing outside can shake what's within. Drop this in the comments. I choose strength over comfort, because once you make that choice, you've already started becoming unstoppable.